So this one is from the Daily Caller. Republican Tennessee Governor Bill Lee announced his plans Monday to aid crisis pregnancy clinics with $100 million in funds, according to his State of the State speech. The objective of this investment is to help nonprofits assist families in a crisis pregnancy situation, the governor's address said. The grant intends to better maternal health care by providing soon to be mothers with the resources they need through investing in nonprofits and crisis pregnancy centers, the governor's office told the Daily Caller News Foundation. There was a significant shift in this country last year when it comes to protecting the lives of the unborn. We now all have an opportunity, a moral obligation to support strong Tennessee families, Lee said in his speech. Lee added that the Office of Faith-Based Initiatives will work with these community programs and nonprofits to get them the resources they need. In fact, last year, Tennessee assisted these centers with ultrasound funding, he said. Pro-life is much more than defending the lives of the unborn. This is not a matter of politics. This is about human dignity, the governor said. So that is something that's currently going on in Tennessee as well, kind of on the flip side of the bill that we were discussing earlier. And this was definitely something that was positive for me to see. Bill Lee has not been the strongest governor in many issues. I definitely wish that he would have taken a harsher stance, against lockdowns and against corporate bailouts and things like that. But, for all the criticisms I can throw at Bill Lee, this was definitely some positive. This is just some positive news to really hear out of Nashville. So, Steve, I'd love to get your initial thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, some of the key points for me was that is coming out of the Office of Faith-Based Initiatives. The fact that we have one is amazing, right? Yeah. I mean, not every state, Massachusetts, Washington, does not have a faith-based initiative. Something like 25,000 mothers, parents, and children will be serviced by this, which is, like we talked about. I mean, if you don't have, if they would have just said abortions are illegal, okay, now some people are going to be in some pretty dire straits. They're not going to know what to do. Here's one less reason to have to run across the state and go to Florida or go to Kentucky to do this. They now have this opportunity to keep that baby alive, and who knows what that baby will become. Unfortunately, he probably has to go to school in Tennessee. That's another issue we can talk about later. But the point is that the fact that a state like this came on the back of what we just talked about, the overturning of Roe versus Wade and doing away with the option of abortion here. But here's an opportunity to help the young mothers in probably the worst time of their lives. That's great. That's what you want from your state. Serve and protect, right? That's valuable. Now, again, with the schools and the vaccines, we got a whole nother situation here that I think that's really the pro-life story of today is the vaccines. But I'm very happy that Bill Lee did that. And when his acceptance speech.
Oh, we lost Steve. Alrighty, well,
he's good too.
Hopefully Steve will jump right back in. But I was actually going to use that. I was going to kind of ask you, Michael, anyways. That kind of goes into a lot of what you were talking about with the incentives being on one side to have certain political opinions. Hey, he's back. But
Chinese got me. They heard what I was talking about.
But yeah, I mean, that being said, though, Steve, what I was kind of about to ask Michael is, we've kind of been talking about how there's incentives to promote certain lifestyle choices and political ideologies. And sometimes that comes directly from the government, as you mentioned earlier, with bailouts of banks, bailouts of big tech, where the government's picking winners and losers. So, yeah, I just wanted to see, Michael, if you had any thoughts on the government kind of stepping in this capacity for, something that we would consider a positive development.
I mean, like Steve was saying before he disappeared, it's what you hope for, right? It's you can't just dive into the alternative without creating resources that are necessary as a result of the legislation being put in place. So at a state level, yeah, it's cool. My question about what you were saying is like, you mentioned that they would be providing necessary resources. I'm curious of what those resources are and who determines what those resources are. That's just a kind of a side question that I would have. But regardless, if we, from a Christian biblical perspective, I think Scripture creates an imperative to care for the fatherless and the widow. And if a direct result of the abortions going down means more children being put up for adoption, then it should be our obligation to engage in that system as much as possible to care for those individuals. Because it's one thing to sit back and vote saying that we care about unborn lives. It's another thing to act in our lives upon the conviction that we do in fact care for those individuals. And I have every intention of my wife and I doing that to whatever degree we feel called to, but to be complacent and carry on in our comfortable life without acknowledging the need that could be created from this step in the direction of righteousness, I think that would be wrong. Similarly, at a state level, I think it'd be wrong for the state to create a vacuum of need and not fill it with something. So I know that doesn't entirely answer the direction your question was going, but that's just where my mind is at on this issue.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's federal funds too, by the way. This would be the only federally approved waiver of its kind in the nation, and it rewards a state for efficient, responsible management of taxpayer resources by awarding additional federal funds known as shared savings to serve the most vulnerable, up to $300 million of shared savings at no additional burden to taxpayers of Tennessee. And I'm pretty sure you said, where's it going to go? Things like Hope Clinic here in Franklin, Tennessee, where mothers go, they don't offer abortion, they offer diapers that they get from donations. They offer canned food. They offer hygiene and healthcare services like you would expect, mammograms and things of that nature. I don't know if they have x-rays there, but they definitely give women their health alternative as a clinic, not as a Planned Parenthood baby factory.
Yeah, that's good to know. When I ask what those resources are, it's not that I'm so cynical that I think they're giving them the wrong thing. It's more of, is it diapers or is it education or is it both? Because a big portion of mothers that are unprepared for a crisis pregnancy may require certain levels of education as well, which hopefully that can come into a clinical setting where they're receiving guidance from practitioners who are also helping them through their pregnancy to have a healthy experience.
Yeah, there are about 20 of those type of, they're called not health clinics, but it's escaping me the name of them, but they're the alternative to a
pregnancy centers.
Thank you, pregnancy center. And there's the ones who are going to get the benefits, I believe, which they mostly rely on donations and charitable giving. Now they're going to have some matching funds, let's just say, to provide the pro-life pregnancy center resources that they have to go begging and pleading for and have annual charity events for, that type of thing. So it's good. I think it's good.
Yeah. And something, we don't have time to flush this out fully in its entirety, because I do have another story that I want us to get to, but we can sit here a moment at least. Something that you said, Michael, about, how we need to step up and basically act on these principles if we're going to espouse them. And something that I think is interesting is when Roe v. Wade was first overturned, that was something that I kept hearing a bunch is, people were kind of then taking the tagline of like, all right, Christians, and this is coming from people within the church even, they're like, all right, Christians, well, now that this is happening, I hope you're all ready, because like we got to step up and fill in that gap. And to be honest, a kind of counter argument that I saw a lot of people circulating, which I thought was pretty funny, is a lot of these individuals who have been big pro-life advocates kind of responded and saying like, yeah, we have been, where have you been? Like, yeah, because I think there's the mushy middle, especially even in the evangelical world, they like to play both sides to a fault, where sometimes it really doesn't actually make sense. Like statistically, it's been proven that conservative Christians are some of the most generous individuals in America. And I'm not, here to just say that we're great and just pat ourselves on the back. There's always more that we can do, I'm sure. But that was something that's interesting to me, is that a lot of the mushy middle were the ones that were saying, well, now we need to step up and do something about put our money where our mouth is. And so many individuals that were some of the most pro-life advocates were sitting there like, yeah, I'm constantly donating a monthly gift to this pregnancy center near me, or I've adopted 3 kids, or, I'm on the adoption list, but hey, believe it or not, there are more people wanting to adopt than there are actually babies available. And people don't like to talk about that. That's a fact that the pro-abortion side likes to oftentimes leave out. But anyways, that was just something that I thought was interesting. And Joey, you kind of laughed about that, so I'd love for you to comment on that.
Well, that was my thought too. I'd have to agree with that. I hope the governor isn't doing this for clout, because the church has been doing this for a long time and doing a good job of it with the limited resources we have as a collective, giving what we can without being government funded.
Yeah. And I'm, of course, not saying that you're wrong, Michael. I'm just saying that's just something that you mentioned that. And it made me think of those arguments that cropped up the day that, the first couple of weeks of Roe v. Wade being overturned.
That's why I bring it up, is that those arguments persist. And I can just hear commenters having a problem in that direction.
Right.
So that's why I want to say, like, yeah, it is our responsibility.
Yeah.
And to your point, it's being tended to, and it has been for some time. That doesn't mean we can't do more, but
Right. Yeah. And if you're someone who feels strongly like, well, we need to step up now, well, it's probably because you haven't been contributing, and not in a mean way. Like everyone has these seasons where we just aren't, operating on all cylinders. Like it's fine. Like you're okay if you haven't been, but just, put your money where your mouth is. If you think the church now needs to do that, well, a lot of us have been. So now it's your turn, and we will welcome you as a brother in arms and not shame you for, not joining the fight sooner. We just are glad that you're here. So
yeah, I mean, I had Bo Lindman on my show, and I moved here prior to I met Scott Hord, who is a pastor here in Tennessee, Nashville, and he actually preaches at the Church of Planned Parenthood. There's only one left in Nashville. There was. And he was out there every day saving. I think he had 365 saves, praying for these women so they wouldn't do it. And then telling them, they say, okay, I won't. What are you going to do for me now? Adopt the child, provide them Tupperware. Everyone has their own needs and wants, right? And these folks actually did that. There's several other too, Hadarian and Locke up there. It's so different, and maybe Joey can attest to this. There's 99 representatives in the House of in Nashville in the Assembly. There are 75 of them are Republicans. So there are 24 Democrats, 1 independent. Those Democrats and independents could run away screaming to Colorado to avoid a vote if they wanted to, and there'd still be quorum, and the Republicans can do what they want to do. So in a state like Tennessee, this happening and this conversation makes all the sense in the world. It's so logical. It's so obvious. Yeah, of course. In Washington, no way, Jose. This is the exact opposite. The reason why they are saying we're a sanctuary state, we will give taxpayer money every which way we can. We'll sacrifice homeless shelters and food to make sure that you can get that abortion, is because about 75% of their folks in Olympia are in favor of that, because we always have to remember this. You always have to remember the cynicism of this situation. Democrats get, or I should say Planned Parenthood gives 90% of their donations to Democrats. The other 10%, I don't know, they're probably wishy-washy. They don't even make any sense. They're in places that there shouldn't be Republicans anyway. But that whole entity is a money laundering scheme for Democrats to get reelected. So of course they're always going to say, oh my gosh, Tennessee, now you have to step up and prove yourself to be the holier than thou that you really are. Well, guess what? we already were, and we're happy about that. So no problem. The argument just fell apart, and they were surprised when Roe versus Wade got overturned. I really believe they didn't think they would do it, but they did it.
Yeah, absolutely. We had some people jump into the chat, which is great, but our chats came in late. So sorry, guys, if you were chatting us and we weren't seeing it, but we had Richard Contrin. He was in the chat, and Susie Q was in the chat, and Renaissance of Man. Will, thanks for coming in. No questions so far. Looks like most people just saying hi and agreeing with most of what we've been saying. So Susie Q did say a lot of kids are being told that's that it's even a lot of kids are
she
being
said
told
aren't.
that it's even an option.
I think she meant to say are not
being told that it's even an option. Yes, that is true. A lot of people do not realize the resources that they have, and that's where we could do a better job as well, is just marketing. Honestly, if nothing else, we could do a better job marketing these alternative options.